listening. We only ask for 5 hours each and every day.
That's right. A reasonable request. Now,
I think so.
Bubba, people love to get updates. What's happening with all the kids in Rick and Bubba land? And we have, through your daughter, been introduced to Congressman Jerry Carl out of the great state of Alabama. They're in District Number 1. And he's been down there in the middle of all this mess. Your daughter is working now with his office. And so, Caitlin, thank you for getting Congressman Jerry Carl on. And, Congressman, welcome to Rick and Bubba. How are you?
Good morning, sir. My preacher only asked for an hour, and you're going to get 5 hours. Maybe y'all are in the wrong business.
Congressman, it's great to meet you finally. I've heard a lot of good things about you, and glad to get you on the air. I know you've had a lot of fun going on there in the house this week.
It's always fun up here, Bubba. I mean, I call it a walk through the trailer park. Some days it gets wild and woolly.
Do you think that Mike Rogers could take Matt Gaetz?
Well, I think that's so overblown, really. I mean, McCarthy did the same thing. McCarthy approached him and had a few words with him, and Mike approached him and had a few words with him. And the only difference is Rick Hudson reached and grabbed Mike. That was the only real difference. I mean, but it's really been blown out of proportion, and Mike feels bad about it. And of course, I'm not going to speak for Gaetz. I don't know how he feels, but I've been with Mike talking most of the weekend.
We've known Mike. We're from the same county, and we've literally known Mike, I guess, since high school, and his wife. So we've known him a long time. Yeah. It's not like him to get flustered like that.
No, that's very unusual. Mike, I consider to be a very close friend. I grew up in Sylacauga myself, so I'm part of that hometown group up there. But there was just a lot of pressure on that floor, and it kept building and building and building, and it's just one of those things that happen. We'll move on. We'll move on. I support Mike, but it's not as bad as it seems. I just want people to understand that.
Yeah, well, everything in D.C. usually gets blown out of proportion when the news guys get a hold of it. Jerry, let me.
D.C. stands for Drama City.
It does. Yeah. It's one of those things. Y'all should get. Like, my wife has a shirt she wears sometimes that says "Mess with me and you mess with the whole trailer park."
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, so that's good.
Mess with me and you mess with the whole trailer park.
Well, Jerry,
I like it.
That whole process, was that healthy? Or do you think it could cause some negative connotations to voters in the middle who go, well, I put the Republicans in and now look at them?
I think it's going to be a combination of both, but overall, I think it was healthy. We need to have those conversations. They needed to be up front. We should have done them behind closed doors. We should have done them in conference and not on the floor, but it is what it is. Today, we'll vote on a budget package, and we'll see how that goes. I'm sure it'll be the same argument, but the difference is it'll be behind closed doors, and behind closed doors, people can be honest. We're family. We can still fuss and fight and get in one another's face, but there's not a camera rolling, and there's not the press there to report something that we've said. So we can be a little more honest about things. So it'll be interesting to see how the day goes.
Congressman, tell us a little bit about H.R. 23. I know you were one of the original co-sponsors on this, and cutting back on this funding for the Internal Revenue Service that looks like they're gearing up to go after hardworking Americans.
Well, when it was pushed through, it was told that they were only going after the wealthy people, the millionaires, which is a joke. You don't need 87,000 armed IRS agents to audit wealthy people's books. So the first package is going to be H.R. 23, as you said, and we call it the Family and Small Business Taxpayer Protection Act. And it's basically going to be to defund the 87,000 IRS agents. There's not a whole lot we can do once it passes, but we do have control of the purse, so we can start trying to defund some of these things. Of course, it'll be kicked to the Senate. The Senate's got to figure out how they're going to deal with it. Of course, from the Senate, it'll go to the president. So we'll open up a whole new conversation on these 87,000 IRS agents, and we can shine some light on what we find and what we think is going to happen. That's our job. If you think about it, that's truly
it
our
is.
job.
It is. Congressman, another one that I think is close to the heart of a lot of Americans and a lot of Alabamians especially is the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. And I know you've been heavily involved in that. Tell us a little bit about that.
That'll be HR 26. That's one we will talk about and debate on the floor this week also. Basically, that starts tightening the noose on the abortion from a federal standpoint. You know, I've always been one to say that the state should have more power on issues like this, and that's where we're at. I mean, that's all the Supreme Court said this last summer, is the state should be able to mandate that. But we'll start tightening the noose a little bit. These liberals on the floor, they'll take abortion even after born. If a baby's born alive, they'll literally take forceps and just clamp it and put it out of its misery. I don't know any other way to put it.
Yeah.
Under the rules that are set now. So we're going to start changing that, where at least it is more, it's got more of a definition of abortion versus all-out murder.
Yeah, Congressman, and we talked about this on the show, and I know that's why you're active on this particular bill. I can't believe that we've all lived long enough in what is supposed to be a civilized society, and we're having to discuss this. I thought all of us agreed that life began outside the womb, and now that's not even a given, and that's why we need, unfortunately, this kind of legislation.
Rick, I agree. And by the way, Rick, I sat in on one of your conferences down in Mobile, a men's prayer group. So I appreciate you and your stance and your view and how you've used your life in such a positive manner to serve God. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You know, up here in D.C., so much of it's about raising money, raising funds. The Democrat Party has figured out that's one place that they can raise a tremendous amount of money. I don't understand it. I mean, I grew up in Talladega County, for example, and the idea of some of the things that they talk about dealing with a fetus just blows my mind. Yeah. So it's something we're going to have to deal with. I mean, it's as common now, if you think about it. You know, 1 in 3 ladies over the age of 18 have possibly had an abortion. You got to think about those numbers, for example. Wow. You got 3 ladies sitting at the table. Chances are one of them's had an abortion. Right. You know, what are we doing for the ladies that have gotten an abortion? We have to have, we've got to have a ministry or some type that we can work with them to get their life back on. They made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Sure. So let's figure out how we can help those, and also the dads. I mean, there's a victim here that never gets talked about, and that's the dads. Right. I'm not saying that every dad feels that way, but there are some that do feel that way. So, you know, the reckoning, it's going to take God to get involved in this. I don't care what. I have no other way to put it. It's going to take a God thing. Yeah, because the mentality up here is just a maneuver. It's not a procedure. It's just a political point.
I certainly don't pretend to know what God's doing all the time, but it appears He's already involved. Mm-hmm. If you just look around. Well, you know,
and really all of this started changing when the Virginia governor, Ralph Nordstrom, what is his name, you know, made the comment about you know, making the infant comfortable until the mother decided what to do. And the backlash from that is what got Roe v. Wade turned over and sent back to the states.
Absolutely.
That's a great point, Bubba. I'm going to use that, if you don't mind, somewhere down the road, but
it's true.
I haven't thought about it that way. Good point.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was that seemed to light the fire for, and then we started seeing all the states pass the laws, you know, limiting and trying to force the Supreme Court to make a ruling on it.
He finally got he didn't realize that he actually said how he actually sees it. Yeah, and I think a lot of people are like, look, we need to stay out of this. People have to make their own choices. Also, somebody just stopped and said, what did he say?
Yeah. And we were all doing that. We're going to run that back again.
Right. Yeah. And then you're like, well, wait a minute. Surely we're not to that point. Is there any Congressman? Do you have to go? I know we could do one more.
No, sir. I'm here. I've got another radio hit somewhere around 10:30 or 11 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
I'm in good shape.
All right. Yeah, I want to ask you about a few more of these now that we have the speaker and business is back underway.
And some of your controversial hiring practices.
Yeah.
We got to talk about that.
We'll be right back.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.
Really my only, Barbara Streisand moment. Now, I understand, of course, I think it gets, you got to be careful when you go down into the world of any Ben Stiller comedy because eventually he's going to derail and
Sure.
and you're going to be like, I wish I wasn't here right now.
Right.
But I understand that she and Dustin Hoffman
Parents.
are very funny as his
Yes,
parents. And,
they are.
And like
they
Meet
are
the Parents
funny.
4 or 5 or
Yeah.
it's on down the road.
I think it may have started at 2 where you first meet them. And then
Yeah.
they become more notable as you go on.
So I'm not really, I'm
they're
sure
funny.
Barbara Streisand and I would probably not agree on too many things, but she's not some person that,
They were kind
I'm-
of the free-willing
bothers me.
parents, best I remember. Kind of
yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
I think she was a therapist, as a matter of fact,
Correct.
for a particular problem.
She was.
Yep. So, but what I don't understand is this shows that because she does have some ego, which I mean, you're into anybody, talent can always breed a little ego.
Sure.
But for some reason, she wants us to know that she's never suffered sexual harassment, but she has been abused by the media. I don't know why.
What's that mean?
I don't know why she wants us to know this.
Listen, her
You know,
quote.
if you're not part of this movement, it's never happened to you. Don't you just stay out of it?
Yeah.
Her quote is funny though. She says, "I wasn't like those pretty girls with little, with those nice little noses. Maybe that's why."
Right. So she really
She
is
got
almost.
a snout on her.
She Greg. Yeah. She says that all these things are horrible, and we all agree with that, whether it's ever happened to you or not. I think we all can say when this really does happen that it is horrible. And but I don't know why she's in this. Why didn't she just come out and say, though it's never happened to me, this is something that needs to be addressed?
Rick,
I mean-
it is horrible, but it has brought to light, and I told you I have run into this already. Now women who think, wow, nobody's ever hit on me. What's wrong with me?
And I think Barbara may be drifting that way. I think that this may be an underlying theme here in this story. Don't you sense it?
Or as they told me, hashtag what's wrong with me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Not that they would respond to it, but as a compliment, they would like to at least get an offer.
Well, you know what it's like? Think about how many times there was something out there that we really didn't want to be part of, but we kind of hurt our feelings when we get to turn it down.
Right. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Right, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like
absolutely. A little different situation, but I know what
But
you
you
mean.
know what I mean.
Yeah,
It's like,
heck yeah.
You and I have been overlooked for a few things that we thought, well, I'd like to at least have the chance to turn that down.
I'd at least like to say thank you, but no thanks.
Right. So anyway, that I don't know why Barbara Streisand is even in the news today, but
I guess for saying that.
yeah, I mean, but is that
She got an album coming out or something?
right? I mean, it would.
You know, she was in the news for, because she's one of these Hollywood, we're all destroying the earth. But
yeah.
she drives around a Winnebago because she won't go in a public bathroom.
correct.
You remember that story?
Yeah, remember every time she makes a stand, somebody looks into her life and goes, "What? You live on another planet."
And they said the
You're-
model she had got 3 miles to the gallon or something.
Yeah, well, on that note, and I'm gonna tell you what, these things. Sherry and I got hung into this yesterday during a little downtime watching. I really enjoy these documentaries, The Planet or Blue Planet, and it always has that English guy narrating them who I love his voice. And but now, so I can watch it. What I've done is in the photography they come up with and how they get the footage they get is just beyond me. I don't know how you do it. How did you end up getting a camera in there where this animal is inside there? I don't know how they do it. And the footage they get is incredible, and I enjoy watching them. But I always wait on it, and Sherry and I get to laughing the moment that they attack human beings, and it never fails. I mean, you're sitting there and you're enjoying it, and all of a sudden you go, however, finding a place to take her young is getting more difficult. And I go, here it comes. Plastic. There it is. And they show some plastic floating out in the water.
Right.
Yeah.
Human beings created a force with plastic that is destroying the ecosystem. You know, you're just like, oh, gosh, here we go. And I love how they'll just throw out these things. This is something that's been going on for 4 billion years. I'm like, and I'll scream at the screen, step out. Gosh, wow, that's what a reach. But it never. You're just enjoying it, and you're having a blast.
I know.
They're even accomplishing what you want them to accomplish. You're going, animals are amazing. How about animals are amazing? Look at that. That's a fish that's learned how to take a clam and bang it against a rock and break it. Wow.
Yeah, it's impressive.
However, clams are getting harder to find. And you're like, oh, here it comes.
Yep, yep.
Due to overfishing and the consumption of clams. And you're like, there it is. Now we get thrown under the bus again. And I always laugh. We got to laughing, and Sherry, of course, there's certain things we say every time, and she has to go, well, here we go. Hey, boys, stand by. Here comes Dad. I said, if 22 minutes now past the hour. Rick and Bubba Show, 866. We Be Big is our number. Congressman Jerry Carl out of Mobile, Alabama, is on the program with us today. We now have a Speaker of the House. McCarthy is in. All that is over. And now we're talking about getting to work. And Bubba talking about the fact that he has strange hiring practices.
Congressman, I know you have a new staff member there. We mentioned it earlier, and I know you're taking good care of her.
Oh, I tell you, she's been such a blessing to us. And Bubba, she has your personality. We're trying to come up with a nickname for her because being from the South, you have to have a nickname.
Sure.
You can't be called by your real name. So I think we may stick Bubette as her new nickname.
That's
so
funny.
She'll be known as Bubette around the office.
Well, she is determined. I'll tell you that. We always called her our spirited child. So when she gets her mindset on something,
she's got a
look
bright
out.
future. I hope it's back in Alabama. We certainly need to bring these bright minds back home, but she's got a future, whatever she goes after.
So no doubt about that, and we're all very proud of her. And when looking at some of the other resolutions, we touched on some biggies, but there's others, and again, I can't believe some of them we're having to actually do,
like protecting our strategic reserve.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about why that is necessary.
Right.
Well, the president, in his divine wisdom, sold our reserves. We're at the lowest level, I think, since 1984. And those reserves are primarily for wartime. Trump did a fantastic job getting all those reserves built up at a very cheap price. President Biden used it to try to bring fuel prices down by flooding the market. And I think some of it even actually got sold over to China in the process. But what we're trying to do is which would be HR 22, which is protecting the American strategic petroleum reserves from China Act. We're going to prevent that from happening again. We're not going to sell any more to China. We need to get those reserves built back up. And war times, that's extremely important. So it's sad that in this country you have to make laws like that to actually protect our own resources. We've got several things that are coming up. We've got some stuff coming up to actually protect our petroleum industry and try to get them back drilling. We need to become energy independent.
Yes.
We shouldn't have to depend on Venezuela and some of these other countries. So we got a strong task there. This administration does not like anything fossil fuel related. I'm on natural resources, so I've been fighting it for 2 years. I probably know better than anybody. We've got a wonderful coal asset up there in Birmingham, Jasper. Mm-hmm. It's just killed the coal industry, petroleum industry, all those industries. So, but we've got to find a way to prop them up until we can get a new president in here and a new Senate and get some sanity back in our government.
Congressman, I don't agree with them, but I understand some of them wanting to do away with gasoline and that kind of thing because they think it pollutes. And again, I don't agree, but at least I understand their position. But what I don't understand, they want to stop drilling, and petroleum is where we get plastic, and plastic is what we have to have in our medical industry. It's also what we have to build battery cars. Do they not understand that?
No, they really don't care. They're just so focused on getting it completely shut off. And Bubba, just for the record, when you started talking about the coal industry, growing up in Silicaga, as a child, we'd go into Birmingham. You couldn't see the city of Birmingham when you came over Red Oak Mountain there for the pollution. And we've come a long ways in the coal industry, a long way. So, I try to point that out on the floor, how far we've come. Let's focus on and talking about how far we've come and the positive side of our natural resources that we deal with now. But this administration, the way they deal with stuff is just literally cut the head off of it. And that's what they've done with the petroleum industry. they still want to get fuel and they want to get it cheap to keep those votes, but they want to get it outside this country. They don't want to get their hands dirty.
Right.
It's okay for us to get these foreign metals from slave countries, but we don't need to be digging them here.
And that's hypocritical and inconsistent, which means you don't really mean what you're saying as far as the danger. You claim there's a danger. Well, if there's a danger, you wouldn't get it from anywhere. And all you're doing is making our country, putting us in a more difficult situation. We're nowhere near to the place we can leave fossil fuels for all the reasons Bubba mentioned, you mentioned, and really, if you even looked at it, just the fuel that runs this country, we're not ready to go to anything else yet. They're pretending
Rick,
we
it's
are.
not just fossil fuels.
Yeah.
If I can interrupt you here, I went up to North Dakota and did a tour with congressmen up there, and what I learned is they've hit a vein up there that's got probably more copper, one of the largest copper finds in the world, and the Biden administration shut that down too. So all of our copper's coming out of China. We can't mine our own copper because they pull the permits on that. So not only are they targeting petroleum, they're targeting everything in natural resources, which doesn't make sense. How much copper do you need to make an electric car? You need a lot. That's probably the number one ingredient, maybe that and lead. But to shut this down, and this company's got $1 billion investment up there already, and they haven't even started digging. But they're attacking all our natural resources. They just think it's okay to get it from other countries, but we should not be independent from other countries, so we don't use our own.
Congressman, what is their beef with copper? Why are they going
it's just the whole mining process.
Okay.
They claim it pollutes our streams. And again, going back to my childhood and seeing what happened in Birmingham, our process of dealing with all of that has changed so dramatically. That water's held, it's filtered, it's released back out. It's natural, it's clean when it comes out. So it's not just copper, it's also magnesium. I mean, there's some plutonium up there, are traces for obviously making plutonium. But everything, all the minerals we need are in that one region in North Dakota. It runs into Michigan that is completely shut down. We can't even mine it. But they're claiming, it'll destroy our natural resources up there. Well, that's hogwash. I'm sorry. We've got the technology to keep that from happening.
Well, Congressman, it's been great to meet you finally, and thank you, Caitlin, for making this happen, and thank you for the work that you have done and continue to do, and for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. I hate to tell you, but I've been listening to you for quite a while.
Well, we've been around for a long time.
I don't want to put a year on it.
We've been around. Look, you can see it, Congressman. You don't have to tell us. You can see it.
Yeah. Well, I'm only 32, so you see what Congress does.
It's rough in politics.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and